Thank you all for showing up today for the Morning Fuel Show. We've got, we got some great guests today. We got, of course, uh, Jim Inhofe has joined us with members of his staff. I would like for Jim to real quickly tell us who all he's got on the line with us, and
Sure.
before we got some opening remarks for us.
Yeah, okay, that's great. First of all, we've got my chief of staff, Luke, and I think all of you know Luke Holland. He's been with me for quite a while now. Knows your industry very well, as does Jake. He's there, and wave at him, Jake. And we have Lacey. So I've got a little bit of support here to talk a little bit about this. Let me run over some ideas that I have that I think will kind of open it up. And I have a copy of your timeline, and we will adhere to that. We have more things today. I can't tell you, David. We've got 6 just unrelated issues that we're dealing with today, and so it's not a fun day. Well, let's start off with, we know what's happened with the oil industry. We know what has happened in terms of the Russians and the Saudis, and it's a price war, and that combined with the coronavirus, that's caused the drop all the way from $60 a barrel down to what, 25 or so. And so we've got serious problems. Now, tomorrow is a very important day. I think it's good that you're having this event today, David, because 2 things are going to happen tomorrow. One of them I'll mention right now. That's going to be the meeting that OPEC and Russia will be meeting with the president. And I think they're expected to agree to some production cuts. They might be as high as 15,000 barrels a day. That'd be a 10% reduction if that is the case. And OPEC and Russia may demand the U.S. also cut domestic production. Now, that could violate a problem that we could be saved by our own antitrust laws at that point. They'll also demand that we cut domestic production, and perhaps the low oil prices would likely reduce domestic drilling. So I just want to start off with that. Some people, and I'd caution you in the industry to keep this in mind. We have several of the oil and gas senators, and one of them is from Alaska. And I think a lot of you have had a contact with Sullivan up there. A great guy, one of my closest friends in the United States Senate. We have a little bit of a disagreement on what we want to do. He was wanting to pull American troops out of Saudi Arabia to force production cuts. And I know that sounds real good to some of you guys, but that really wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for a number of reasons. One, it would just destabilize everything we're trying to do in the Middle East. It would also create a hardship on or really an impossible situation for Israel. We would have also the fact that it would strengthen the Iranian influence in that region. I believe it really would, and we can't afford to do that. And then lastly, they'd only be talking about just Saudi Arabia and not Russia. So that's something that is a problem where I am in disagreement with my good friend Sullivan from Alaska. And I think we're pretty much divided in the oil industry representation in the Senate. Now, let me tell you what I have done, because this became pretty controversial. People thought this is too big of a step, and I think you guys agreed with me. And that is, I've become very close to Wilbur Ross. He's the Secretary of Commerce, a great guy. He thinks like we do. In fact, he came from industry, and he was a fun guy to come. He had a hard time being confirmed because Democrats didn't like him because he was too industry oriented, just the kind of guy that we want. What I did, I called him up first to make sure that he understood, and I'd get a positive response when I was suggesting that he use a 232 investigation into the excessive dumping that we know is taking place. So procedurally, what they'd have to do, David, and the rest of you over there, is come out with this investigation to, number one, determine whether or not they are dumping. Well, they are dumping. We know that. But then also, that's the first step to take to including to have some tariffs put in place. I kind of felt at the time that we weren't going to be able to successfully get anything done unless we had that threat to have tariffs in there and give us a little bit of strengthen our argument. So what we've done is we have the Trump actions. He's been our friend all the way through this. I think everyone agrees with that. And he is now putting together, I mentioned there are two things that are going to happen tomorrow. One is that they're going to meet with the Saudis and Putin and the president. And the second thing is we're going to try to do something to pass a law. Now, I think all of you know we're not there. I'm in Oklahoma. And the other three that I introduced to you are all in Washington right now. So they're in my office in Washington. But what we can't do is get anything done in the Senate because we don't have the numbers there. We're precluded from going there for the obvious reasons. So what we can do is you can do anything by unanimous consent. And so tomorrow, the leader of the Republicans, Mitch McConnell, is going to try to do a unanimous consent that would have some really positive effects on you folks. He'd be talking about some of the adding another $250 billion to try to reach the protection of the oil and gas industry. The problem with that is you'd also have to have the House in on that. And as you know, Nancy Pelosi, and before I know some time has gone by, you may have forgotten this, but we were supposed to have passed the phase number 3 bill. That was the big bill, 6 o'clock p.m. a week ago Sunday. All the Democrats in the Senate were in agreement with this. All the Republicans were. This was going to happen. We're very excited about it. And then at the last minute, Nancy Pelosi came dancing in, and she was making all of her demands. She wanted to have take advantage of all the spending that's going on, and she was introducing things that had nothing to do with the virus. And so she wanted to have, all of her liberal agenda. Well, I'm afraid that right now she knows that she has to get something done. And to do that, it's going to be a negotiation. And she's going to demand certain things. So we will know how that turns out tomorrow. And so both those things are going to take place tomorrow. And I think that we can announce that the UC is going to be attempted. I would kind of call on you, Luke, to evaluate, or Jake, either one. Where are we now? The reason I'm going to be relying on some help in all these calls I'm making today is that they are there. I'm in Oklahoma, and this is changing on an hourly basis. So is there anything new that either one of you would have in terms of what we would look forward to or not look forward to happening tomorrow with the UC proposed by Mitch McConnell?
Jake, you want to go ahead?
Go ahead. Hey, Luke.
Well, Senator, you got it exactly right. In fact, just while you were speaking, the leader's office put out their notice that they will ask for unanimous consent to add an additional $250 billion into the payroll protection program. Any small business, including oil and gas companies who have fewer than 500 employees, are eligible for this, and it can provide you with a loan that's forgivable for payroll up to 8 weeks. And Pelosi, one of the things that she's demanding in exchange for adding more money into this program is that industries like oil and gas be excluded. And so McConnell's request is a straight increase in funding and appropriations for this account. And so he has put that notice out just while the senator was talking to provide additional support for small businesses. And that will be happening tomorrow. And we will see if the Democrats are willing to play ball or if they're going to balk at this. Jake, anything else to add?
Nothing else to add on that, other than the senator has been weighing in with the Secretary of Treasury too on making sure oil and gas is not excluded from these opportunities. So other than that,
yeah, that's good. I appreciate that reminder there, because I should have mentioned that at the beginning, because there was some notion at that time that they would be excluded from that provision. But since that time, they have now declared that it will be. So you oil and gas guys will be made a part of that. So that's some good news. So why don't we open it up to anything you want to talk about?
Well, boy, thank you guys for all that background. That's right now, obviously, the market is significantly oversupplied. You're going to get varying numbers. EIA is thinking it's somewhere between 16 and 20 million barrels a day. One of the hard constraints is storage. We had start early in the first quarter, we had about 1.2 billion barrels of storage in the world of capacity. Right, that's not very many days, as you can calculate, if we're going to overproduce upwards of 20 million barrels. I've heard people throw out numbers like 25 and 30, and I think part of that is the imbalance of the demand destruction. At the same time, that much demand destruction is looking at right now world consumption. I think EIA is saying it's going to dip down here in the third quarter, not respond to the third quarter, but dip down April, May to around 85 to 88 million barrels. We're producing, up over 100 million. So the 20 number seems to keep popping up, but the hard stop is the 10 million barrels of 10 million barrels is going to have to come offline in the April-June timeframe, or you just don't have a place to put it. That's the bottom line. So what if we were to ask you, Jim, what things that we do? I bet the idea of Section 301, a lot of things have been thrown at the wall. What can we do? What more can we do?
I would think that I know that you have publicly endorsed 232, right? And
True.
That what we need to do is remind the members, particularly the members from the oil states in the Senate. I would start there because they're more organized than they are. And of course, we are a minority in the House. You got to keep in mind that this is not, well, the days of the fossil fuel, the war on fossil fuels, we thought were over at the end of the 8th year of Obama. And of course, now that they have the control of the House, that puts us in a different situation. And that's why we don't know for sure what is going to happen tomorrow. But I would start off by suggesting that you keep that on the table, because there are a lot of them who don't want to do that. But so long as the threat is there, I think that would be helpful. And Wilbur Ross is our friend. It's such a difference now that we have Trump in there making these appointments. And so he would like to do that, although he really is not in a position to say that. So that would have to come from industry. Now, I'd call on both Jake and Luke to add anything to that. The question that David mentioned was, what can they do that will be helpful to us to help them?
Sure. So staying in contact with your members and the staff is obviously very important. Right now, as you've probably seen, the Democrats blocked, as the senator said, have blocked a lot of the things that would help with increasing storage. One of the things that President Trump and Republicans were pushing for was increasing the strategic petroleum reserve capacity to try to offset the amount of barrels that are out there. That was opposed by Democrats. That would have been an immediate solution to help take off some of that supply out of the markets. We will continue to be pushing for that. I know that the Energy Secretary is looking at alternative ways to try to do that through perhaps leasing additional space through the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. There's a number of things that we'll be trying to do, but I think staying in touch with your members and urging them to support these issues is the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I would add, and I want Luke to weigh in on this, but I would add the House too, because we do have some. In fact, I think that you probably, Jake, could inform some of them where some of the likely targets are, because it's a different world out there now, because Nancy Pelosi can't continue to do what she's done in the past, because we actually have to get some things done. And so we can't just roll over as we have had to do in terms of the House. So we can help you with some names, people to get behind us. We got to get this moving, and this may be a good time to do it while we're all stuck here in mobile fashion. Did you want to add something to that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the associations of oil and gas companies from other states, making sure that they're coordinating with their senators and House members up in Washington as well, whether it's Colorado or Texas or Ohio, whomever, just to make sure that everybody knows how important it is that the president really kind of press in and put some pressure on our partners, well, in Russia, not our partner, but on Saudi Arabia and Russia, to come to an agreement on a significant production cut. As you guys know, it's much easier for these state-run oil companies to lower production levels than it is for our very broad and vast industry across the country. I know that the typical economics are going to put pressure on our guys to drill fewer wells in the future, but that's just a simple economic situation. We need these state-owned oil companies to lower their production and do their part. They're the ones who can flood the market the way that they have and crash prices, or they can be good players and get prices back up to a level that's sustainable.
Yeah, let me mention also, David, that during the 8 years of Obama, we remember so well the war on fossil fuels at that time. Now today, I think most of your members there know that I chair the Senate Armed Services Committee, which is very significant because people don't realize what Obama did to the military. And my effort's going to be to get us back up ahead of China and Russia, a huge issue. But during that time, I chaired the Environment Public Works Committee, and that was during the height of the effort by Obama to do away with you guys. And don't bother yourself trying to be logical about these things, because when you ask the question, how are you going to run this machine called America if you do away with fossil fuels? And the answer is you can't do it. And I only bring that up to say that just because we have a president who is friendly doesn't mean that it's not still the problem that it was at that time, because they're still out there, and they're going to do everything they can to inflict harm and damage on the industry that so many of us have been a part of.
Earlier, Luke, and I think Jake did mention as well that tomorrow there's the additional $250 billion of help coming, likely, whether included or not. Do you anticipate there'll be serially more of this? One of the we got a question on the chat about why did the Democrats? Luke answered it really well on the chat line here, but the truth is they wanted to trade solar and wind credits and a bunch of Green New Deal stuff, exactly like you wrote, to get the SPR, realizing that the SPR only had about 90 million barrels of capacity, I think 77 real capacity, and we were looking for 30 or something like that. But even that, it only can fill up at about 500,000 barrels a day. So it's significant, but it's not as significant as the dumping issue. I don't think most people realize that we import about that 500,000 barrels a day from Saudi and 500,000 from Russia. Russia is an importer to the U.S. So at the time where we actually were producing, the January numbers is the latest I've got, we were around 13 million barrels, obviously the largest producer. But what's happened is the understanding that, and we want you guys to understand and to tell people, is the native decline of our wells that are influenced by shale wells is significantly higher than the stable legacy production is. And so our production will come down dramatically just by the announcements of things like CapEx cut by Continental. Continental actually has become a leader where they've come out and said they're going to cut 30% of their production starting pretty quickly. My guess is they'll start in the Bakken because of the delta there. The real issue at Obama era hangover with the DAPL pipeline that you probably are aware of, that they're still fighting Keystone even. So there's still some headwinds that are hangovers. So what? Let's say that looking at EIA, they're thinking that we're going to have a V-shaped type recovery in the oil markets. Why don't you just real quickly, do you think that that's what we're going to be looking at, or is it going to be more protracted than that?
Yeah. Well, when you guys want to take that, I think probably you, Luke, be more familiar with that.
And your question was about EIA numbers?
Yeah, the EIA is looking at, like, they're showing a bottom of around 88 million barrels. I think it might be slightly lower than that, but to get back up to around 100 where we were at, they're projecting that's going to happen in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. That's a V shape. So we're wondering if what you guys are hearing, what you think.
Yeah, I think all that's tied to how quickly we can reopen the economy. You know, everything is shut down right now, and we've seen, as you guys know, a reduction in demand of probably 30% for gasoline, and obviously probably more than that for jet fuel. I know diesel's still pretty strong, but refineries are designed to kind of do the mix of all those things, the way that the economy's been set up for so long. And so I think the big question is, how quickly can we get testing where it's ubiquitous and people feel comfortable going back to work, knowing that those who have the virus are quarantined, and then making sure our hospitals and healthcare system are actually at surge capacity so that they can very comfortably treat anybody who might have the disease and have more complications. And so I think once those two things are in place, that there's going to be a big push to get the economy back up and running again, because everybody knows that you can't be shut up for more than a couple of weeks before everyone's going to start going crazy and revolting. Let alone just wanting to go back to work, because there's a big portion of the population that just can't work from home, and they need to be able to get out and move around to go to their jobs and to work. And so long term, we need to be really careful that the prescription that we are pursuing right now to slow the spread, which is really important, does not do more catastrophic damage to the economy, because that can be even more detrimental to the health and welfare of especially the lower class of the United States.
I think a lot of people.
Another thing that popped up on the chat line here is, and I think a lot of people don't understand, is basically we make sweet high gravity crude oil for the most part in the lower 48 compared to high sulfur based Saudi and heavier oils from some of these. The reason why the question was, why do we even import from Russia in Saudi? And the reason is that our refineries are set up to handle that kind of crude, not the lower 48 higher gravity crude. That's bottom line. I answer some of their questions too, guys. There's a lot of interest in this with you guys on the line. We got about 3 minutes or so left, and I think everybody is going to want to ask Jim, you as the statesman for us up there. What do you see in the elections? What do you? I know. Oh God, you're going to get asked a lot, but
yeah, you may.
He's smiling. He wants to hear the answer too. So
you may have noticed I announced I was running for re-election, and in one of our discussion right now is one of the reasons for that. But the other one is what happened to our military. People don't understand that, and I do chair that committee to make sure that we get back where we should be in our posture with Russia and China, because we're not there right now. So in terms of the president, his numbers keep going up. You know, all the time they were talking about impeachment, every day they were talking about it, his numbers went up, and that's still happening today. Where is it now? About a 7-point spread in our favor that it was gained. I think that's a figure that I heard yesterday. So I think that I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to be reelected. I mean, the things he's done recently, you've seen a different person on his daily reports that he has. He's very calm, very collected. He's actually called Joe Biden, talked to him about it. He's doing everything right, and he's not quite as hysterical as he is sometimes. That served his purpose, but I think his numbers are good, and it'll continue. You would probably be a better judge of how that affects my election, but I've tried losing once, and it wasn't much fun.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. You absolutely have my vote. So,
That's
see,
a good.
you got 62% of the people thinking that the president's handling it right, and you got 70% of the people here in Oklahoma think our governor's handling it right, that from the COVID standpoint. And
Yeah, we are doing real well with the governor, with working with the governor in all these issues, including your issue. So I think
we're going to be fortunate to have the Secretary of Health and Mental Health, Jerome Loffridge, on. He's been frontline guy here in Oklahoma. We're very proud of the work that he's done. We're going to have him on the show next week. Going to be getting close to that. What we're predicting, that peak April 22nd date. One last question about regarding the House. What's our chances of getting the House back?
You see, here's the thing. There are a lot of House members, and they got a better handle on that than I do, who are thinking that we've got a good shot at getting the House back. I never thought that until some of the things that happened recently, and the real far left liberal female House members have painted a new picture for America as to what Democrats are all about nationally. And I think that is going to cause a lot of people to, I mean, you just stop and think about these debates that you had with all the Democrats. I mean, I can remember back when socialism was a bad word. They're living it. And so I think that's a new definition. And I think that's going to serve us who think like Americans very well. So I'd like to believe that my three friends that I think have a good handle on this in the House are correct, that we have a shot at doing that. Now, I have a very selfish reason for that. There are a lot of things you wouldn't think that defending America should be a partisan issue, would you? I don't think anyone believes that. But it is, in terms of what we're doing right now to rebuild our military and put ourselves back in the driver's seat. And of course, we know where they are on your industry. So that would serve us all better. And I think that's a good note to end on, because I'd like to think that that's going to happen. You want to see
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Around this table.
That's outstanding, guys. And so we've run out of time, but more, we sure appreciate you. I know you're going to be on with the Oklahoma City Chamber or something.
Yeah, we'll be
yourself. Wish you well in that endeavor, and thank you for everything you're doing for us, Jim and guys.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, David. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.